Putin drops the economic nuclear bomb. There are economic decisions. When they are issued, their effect becomes like a nuclear bomb. This is what Russia did in a series of decisions it took last March, a set of decisions that seem very strange and incorrect, and we see them as a reckless reaction from the Russian side to the sanctions imposed by some countries, especially America and the European Union. But when we see its tangible results in the near time on Earth, we see that they are very precise, carefully considered decisions and predetermined timings. I will not be exaggerating if we say that Russia is giving us a new lesson in the world economy and how to turn magic into magician. When we link these decisions together and see their economic effects, we see the effects of the first nuclear bomb that Russia launched in this war on America and the entire world. Come with us to know what these decisions are and their impact on the Russian economy and the world. On March 7, Russia released a list of unfriendly countries and, immediately after the decision, instructed all companies and citizens to pay dues to all global companies in unfriendly countries in Russian rubles. For those who do not know what countries are not friendly, they are all countries that participated in or imposed sanctions on Russia as a result of the military operation in Ukraine. It includes about 47 countries, most notably, America, United Kingdom, European Union, Canada, Japan. On March 28, the Central Bank of Russia announced that it would buy any amount of gold at a price of 5,000 rubles per gram, and this price is about 19% lower than the world price. You will mostly say as a viewer, what is forcing someone to sell gold at a lower price than the world price? But do not be surprised, my friend, when I tell you that there are those who sold Russia large quantities of gold at the price set by Russia. I want you to stay with me until the end so that you understand this mystery with me. On March 31, Russia issued a decision to sell Russian oil and gas in rubles. What can we conclude from these decisions? First, the strength of the Russian economy. Because any country in a state of war tends to sell gold to save money to cover the expenses of the war, and not the other way around as happened with Russia. Second, any country in a state of war tries to make use of its resources such as oil and gas to attract as much hard currency as possible to maintain foreign exchange reserves to ensure currency stability, especially with a large number of sanctions imposed on it, which directly threatens its economy, and this was done exactly the opposite in the case of Russia because it resorted to taking its dues in its local currency, defying the dollar. But hey, this is not the real analysis of these decisions. The devil is in the details. There are deeper purposes behind these mysterious decisions. Come with me, study these decisions and link them to penalties so that we understand more. Among the biggest sanctions imposed on Russia was its isolation from the global SWIFT system, and the Russian response at that time was the creation of a new financial system alternative to SWIFT, but this new system would not allow it to deal with unfriendly countries, of course, and among the unfriendly countries are countries that are in dire need of importing energy sources such as oil and gas from Russia. How do these countries pay Russia the value of the oil and gas it imports, especially with Russia imposing a decision to pay its dues from hostile countries in Russian rubles? How will these countries find the available quantities of rubles in light of their isolation from the global SWIFT system? Here we will find the second solution by selling gold to the Russian regime in exchange for the ruble to pay for Russian oil and gas, and here we see the deception of the Russian regime in issuing such a strange decision to buy quantities of gold at a low price of its market value and who were forced to sell it at the price charged by Russia to get rubles for gold. Some economic analysts say that this is a proactive step to link the ruble to gold. This is for Russia. But what about the countries on the other unfriendly front? How are they going to deal with this situation? There are three solutions on offer. First, countries pay for oil and gas in rubles, and this will be accompanied by an increase in demand for the Russian ruble, and therefore the value of the Russian ruble will rise against the dollar. But even if they did, they would not find enough Russian rubles on the market to pay off Russian dues, so they would sell gold to Russia to buy the ruble. Indeed, if the situation continues for some time, the value of the ruble will continue to rise to equal the rate that the Russian system imposed from the beginning for a gram of 5,000 rubles, and this will gradually lead us to eventually peg the Russian currency to gold. The last solution is to completely dispense with Russian oil and gas so that the world and the great powers do not fall into this Russian trap. But I would like to point out that this is almost impossible soon. Perhaps they can compensate for some of the quantities imported from Russia from other sources, but it is impossible to compensate for all the quantities imported by European countries in particular because for decades they depend mainly on Russian oil and gas for their cheap prices and proximity between them. Second, Europe's attempt to get rid of Russian oil and gas and find an alternative that would push oil and gas prices to unprecedented levels. and this is already happening in Europe, in particular in the world at large, due to the increased demand for non-Russian oil. It will also raise energy prices, which will automatically cause Russian energy prices to rise as well. But will Europe and the world bear the cost of this behavior and isolate Russia and dispense with the energy sources that Russia provides them? We are done with the expected economic impacts on Russia, the European Union, and the world. But what about the world superpower? What will be the consequences of these decisions for the economy of the largest economic power in the world? I would like to make this clear, my friend, and according to all the economic analyses from the largest experts in this field, America is the hardest hit and the most affected, not only by the level of rising energy prices, but there are direct consequences that threaten its source of strength, which is the dollar. The question is, how will this happen? When we say that these steps are only the beginning of linking gold to the ruble and thus linking Russian oil to gold and the ruble, this will result in almost catastrophic effects on the petrodollar exchange, which means that a direct threat to the American economy will arise, which derives its power mainly from the dollar. This is due to the reasons. Firstly, Russia is one of the largest countries in the world in gold reserves, and the steps taken by Russia to sell the ruble for gold will increase its reserves even more. At that time, Russia will become a haven in the event of any global economic collapse or fluctuation in the dollar exchange rate for investors, especially since the Russian central bank guarantees the holder of the ruble currency a fixed amount of gold against the ruble. Let's pause here for a while until we see evidence of these previous analyses and see the performance of the ruble against the dollar in the previous period. The value of the ruble today until this video was made is higher than it was before the war. On February 23, 2022, $1 was equal to 77 rubles at that time. The military operation took place on February 24. The ruble is gradually declining, and this is a natural consequence of any country embarking on a military operation. 2 weeks later, on March 9, 2022, the ruble reached 139 rubles to the dollar. But what is not normal is what happens in the coming weeks. That is, the ruble lost about 44% of its value against the dollar. 3 weeks later, on March 30th, precisely, after the Russian economic decisions, we suddenly find that the dollar is at 83 rubles, that is, amid all the imposed sanctions and the Ukrainian crisis, we find that the ruble regains 92% of its value again. As for gold, we will find that on February 24 a gram of gold was equal to 4,688 rubles on March 9, a gram of gold was equal to 9,000 rubles on March 28. A gram of gold amounted to 6,200 rubles. Then Russia announced its purchase of gold at 5,000 rubles per gram, and at that time its price was 19% lower than the world price. But after 3 days, the difference between the world rate and the rate charged by Russia became 3.3%. This interpretation is to simplify the viewers so that we can see what is happening in the world and the impact of some countries' decisions, negatively or positively, on the world. To simplify the viewer even more, knowing the impact of these Russian decisions on the world, especially America, this will begin in the viewer's mind. What about countries that do not have gold reserves? How will they pay Russia? The solution then will be to buy large amounts of rubles, and, of course, the foreign reserve, the dollar, will be dispensed in return. What will happen to the dollar in the ruble swap? This dollar will return to its main source, which is the U.S. Federal Reserve, that is, an increase in the volume of supply, a decrease in demand, and an increase in inflation. That is, Russia, as we said in the past, turned magic into a sorcerer or turned misfortune into a direction. If you like the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel.